Hello, everyone. This is Warhawk Beyond 2040, and welcome to our follow up edition of the success and failures of Arrow and The Flash. And today we are going to be talking about the success and failures of Supergirl. And we are joined once again with the one and only, the badass himself, RexDaBoss11. How are you, brother?
I am good, Warhawk. Hey guys, how's it going? Let's talk about the downfall of Supergirl.
Now, this is something we've been wanting to talk about for quite some time now, ever since we started talking about the overall success and failures of the Arrowverse. So we've talked about the success and failures of the Arrowverse slash why the Arrowverse should go to HBO Max. We've also talked about the success and failures of Arrow, and we've also talked about the success and failures of The Flash. So this is something I'm dying to get my teeth into. So, Rex, we're going to start with you first. What was your thoughts and reaction to Supergirl getting her own show? So we'll start with you first.
Well, to be honest, I'm just gonna be real and say this was announced at the very, very, very peak of the Arrowverse. So they could have literally thrown, you know, the League of Super Pets in as a live action thing,
Yeah,
like with CGI or like honestly with like puppet sort of characters made of like cotton. I'm being honest, like Teletubby looking characters, and I would have bought into it at that time. They had me completely brainwashed, like with the Arrowverse and all. Everything that was DC just seemed to just be good at the time. So when I heard that this was coming out, I was like, yeah. And I'll be honest, once again, I was just completely mesmerized. A female character being, looked at and being portrayed so successfully in the first like run. You could just tell that she was going to be something. They weren't just going to throw anything at us with her. You could tell that there was something coming with her and she was going to be something big. I was madly excited when it was announced that she was going to get her own series, etc. I believe, had we seen her just before? We'd
um,
seen her just before, hadn't we? Just before she got her own series, she'd been introduced into the Arrowverse, hadn't she? Or am I wrong about that?
uh, no, I don't know. She wasn't actually. No, she never appeared prior to Supergirl at all.
Was it
This was just
was it just like a drop down from the sky sort of situation, and now she's who she is situation? Did we actually get that? Because it's so long ago now. I'm thinking like, was she not just thrust in the middle of the Arrowverse? No, maybe she wasn't. Maybe she wasn't. Maybe this was. I'm just thinking of it in the way that I would have probably have written the script because I'm thinking back to the early series. They did kind of give her a bit of an origin story as well, if I'm not wrong. She was a bit younger when the series first started, and then she quickly developed into the Supergirl character, didn't she?
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's pretty much what happened. Um, my reaction and thoughts to Supergirl getting her own show. I mean, Supergirl came out in 2015, so that was almost 8 years ago. I was not really keen on the idea because, first of all, when I think of Supergirl live action, it brings back bad memories of Helen Slater from 1984 with the Supergirl movie. Nothing against her, lovely actress, looked the part, but that film was just terrible. But when they announced that Supergirl was getting her own show, I thought, well, first of all, I don't think Supergirl's strong enough to have her own show in the lead, because if you're not going to have Superman involved, then the way I looked at it was I'm not interested, because I just didn't think she was a strong enough character to have her own show. But then my friend, he watched the first season. He said, "Oh, I'm not sold on it. It's a bit girly, but it's not a bad show." But I thought, nah, I don't know really. And the fact it wasn't even a CW show either. It wasn't even connected to the Arrowverse, which so completely put me off even more. And as time went on, I just didn't bother watching it. But then around about I think it was like 18 episodes into the show, they announced that Flash is going to be teaming up with Supergirl. They're going to do a crossover thing, and I thought, oh, you're only bringing in the Flash because the show is not doing very well. But I thought, well, I'm a big fan of the Flash. I'll watch it. and it tied into an episode from season 2 of The Flash where Flash was trying to get faster to keep up with Zoom, and he ended up in Supergirl's Earth. And I watched that episode, and I really enjoyed it. It was a really good episode. I thought, maybe I should give Supergirl a chance. So what I did was I downloaded the entire first season and I watched it on the plane. I went on holiday, so I watched it on the whole flight. So I watched all 20, I think it was like 22 or 23 episodes, and I thought, all right, this actually wasn't that bad. It actually was a good first season. Bit light-hearted, bit on the girly side, but overall I quite enjoyed it. And the Flash episode, I think that's what kind of like cemented it for me. I thought, okay, yeah, I'll give it a shot. And I watched the first season again properly on DVD, and yeah, it was much better than I remembered, and it was a lot of fun. And I think really with Supergirl, Flash has a balance. He can be fun, but he can be serious. Arrow is very serious and dark. And I think with Supergirl, what made it work for her was she's a very light-hearted character. So and I think that's what made it a good dynamic for those three shows. What would you say to that, Rex?
I mean, I think as well, before I go any further, I do think that, like, you may have been wrong about the whole, like, this show wasn't doing well, so they brought in
That's how
the
I looked at
Flash.
the time.
No, I actually believe at the time, because I was watching this program, I actually believe that the Flash had started to slightly struggle in its second series. So they decided to combine these two series. If you are right, I'm sure you are right about this wasn't supposed to be part of the Arrowverse at the start. I'm
No, it
sure that
wasn't.
they actually announced. That's why I'm getting that confused, because at first, now you mentioned it, it did feel eventually like they just dropped her into the Arrowverse, because they did. Because at first this was nothing to do with the Arrowverse at first, and then of
No.
course, because it was another character towards the end of the first series, you are right, they had a few, and I'm going to say this now, they had a few VR Troopers versions of Supergirl towards the end of the first series, where it felt like they'd spliced some footage from different episodes together to make one episode. I don't know if you noticed that or if you can remember that, but towards the end of the first series, I feel like maybe episode 18, 19, 20, 21 onwards, where it led up to the end of the series, some of those episodes clearly were not full episodes. It's like almost like they extended the series a bit longer, because it had actually picked up a little bit of popularity at that stage there. But yeah, looking back now, I feel, because this is good that we're in different places. I was really, really bought into this. I wasn't on the fence at all. This should have been a successful show. I had no idea about the previous one, the previous movie that had come out before until this. I obviously know that they had Dean Cain in this, and they had the female who played Supergirl
Helen
in the
Slater.
film, Helen Slater. What's her name? Helen Slater?
Yeah, yeah,
She played the mom, and Dean Cain played the dad
that's
in
right.
this. And they, of
Yes.
course, had already played Supergirl and Superman at separate times. That was the start of that, wasn't it? Where they started to bring in former actresses and actors to play the roles of different characters in the same universe that they had played the character originally, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, Terry Hatcher also appeared in a few episodes as well. She played like a villain.
Yeah, she did. And they also, well, obviously she was nothing to do with like superheroes or anything, but they also had Ally McBeal in
Oh,
this program as well, was it? Because
the
obviously
actress.
you didn't mention that this is half and half, isn't it? This is a program. But whereas the rest of them have got this Team Arrow, and she does develop the Team Supergirl thing, Team Arrow, Team Flash, she originally had this double life. She was doing the Clark Kent thing, where it's like she was
Yeah,
this news reporter, and she said that it really sucked me in at first. And she's an attractive female, and she wasn't attractive to little boys or to, the demographic that they were aiming for, let's say a bit further down the line. She was attractive to, 20-odd-year-old men who were looking at a 20-year-old female. She was attractive to them. She had it all going on in every department. but they wouldn't, almost like they wouldn't sexualize the character. They even desexualize the character a lot, if I'm honest, to make it so that you weren't just focused on her looks and you weren't just focused on the transformation between her being a Kara and then being Supergirl. Weird for me how they went down that road there, but you could tell from the very early origins of whatever they were going to do with this series, they were going to focus on Supergirl as a character and a DC character.
That's right.
Rather than focusing her on being a sex symbol or anything like that.
Well, I mean, Melissa Benoist, who plays Supergirl slash Kara Danvers, she originally came from Glee. So I didn't really know a lot about her as an actress. I remembered her briefly from Glee. So there wasn't really much to go with her. So when I first saw her, I thought, okay, she looks the parts, but can she act the parts? I mean, what was your reaction to Melissa Benoist being cast as Supergirl? I mean, because I
I
didn't
mean, I
really
had no idea who she was. I'm not going to even pretend. There is a mad link between, I think it's to do with budgeting more than anything else. There is a mad link between the Glee cast, sorry, that's not the easiest thing to say, the Glee cast and the CW network, because let's be fair, Grant Gustin also came from Glee as well.
Yes.
There's a few other people who were villains as well in some of the series that were filmed here that I can't
They
think of
also
off the
came
top of
from
my
Glee
head.
as well.
They came from Glee as well. Yeah, they got a lot of Canadian actors and actresses. They obviously got the deal where they have to use Canadian actors and writers and all that type of stuff, like they did with X-Men and the cartoons with the Marvel animated universe back in the 90s and stuff. It's cheaper to make these things in Canada, and we
Yes.
all know the deal. We all know the deal with this production. Like we're not blind to it. We've obviously done enough research over the years to realize the reason why they went from high budget episodes of real, you know, CGI and spectacular laser beams and stuff to the next episode being looking like it was filmed in a broom closet was the production. You know what I mean? Like, once again, I just feel that she was always going to be an unknown entity, as in the actress was always going to be an unknown entity.
True.
If you're asking me visually and perspective wise and retrospective wise, was she the right choice? I'd say yes, she was definitely the right choice. She definitely gave you that girl next door, you know, cute girl, takes off the glasses, secretary look to her. That's exactly what we're looking for here, isn't it? So
Yeah.
yeah, she gave that look. She had the right things in the right places. The character development and what she became as the series went on, we'll talk about that as we go through. I feel like it absolutely destroyed everything that they built for this female in the first 20 episodes of the first season. Everything after that just showed it made her look unattractive and unappealing towards the audience that was watching her at home. Sorry if that offends anyone, but I have to be honest, as a red-blooded male, it turned men off to her.
Yeah.
So I don't know if she was the right choice. Like, I wasn't excited about it. I didn't really have a massive opinion, but looking back as a retrospective, she probably wasn't the right choice. I feel like maybe somebody a little bit more fiery and less girl next door, looking like, you know, American sweetheart type of look. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Who knows?
Well, I mean, my reaction to Melissa Benoist being cast as Supergirl, I mean, just like you, I didn't really know a whole lot about her, didn't really follow her that much, but I saw pictures of her, you know, being cast in the role. I thought, okay, she looks the part, you know, long blonde flowing hair, you know, nice figure, you know, all that, everything you want for Supergirl. But I felt round about season 5, they really started to make her unattractive. They ditched the classic iconic red skirt and the boots, and they gave her like full blue bodysuit and pants, and they gave her like cropped bangs hair at the front. I just thought, well, I don't know, really. I kind of liked how Supergirl looked in the first 4 seasons. She looked like Supergirl.
She looked like Wonder Woman from the Wonder Woman failed pilot TV show.
Yeah, that's what they went for in
But
season
just not,
5.
but just nowhere near as attractive as the
No,
brunette that played Wonder Woman in that series.
that was the problem. And
Can I just ask a question? Did she have a child in the series,
no,
or did she? Because I'm gonna be honest, and I'm gonna say, and once again, I mean no offense. I feel like during the series, one of them, maybe 4 or 5, she started to gain weight,
uh,
and she got very plumpy. And
yeah,
I'm just
she
gonna be
was
honest. I
pregnant.
don't know if this down the line led to her, because I don't even know what her sexuality is. I don't know if she's straight. I don't know if she's. I
No,
don't know
she's
what she is.
married. No, she's
But
100%.
I feel like she got in a relationship and started to get serious around this time because she got complacent, because she got plumpy. She you know, whereas you look at Stargirl, when she first took the role as like a 17, 18-year-old, she's clearly leaned up over the last 3 series into the role. She was a bit podgy at first, but
Mm.
she's slimmed down a lot. She had big thighs and thick thighs at first, but she had a bit of a belly. Now she's really started to slim down for a teenage, you know, early 20s girl.
Yeah.
But I feel like this Cora, and I don't want to be body shaming anyone. I'm clearly just an old fat guy sitting at home. I'm just saying, like, you know, I'm just being honest and saying, as a person watching her, she did look like she was having some issues. You know, Alicia Silverstone, maybe not Alicia Silverstone issues, where it's like, look, you're supposed to be matchstick thing, and you've eaten one too many sandwiches this week, and you're now not matchstick thing. You're, you know, safety matchstick thing, where you're a little bit thicker. They're going on like, you know, she was more matchstick to like, you know, maybe
Yeah.
like popsicle.
Well, I mean,
She'd not doubled in size, but
no.
she definitely put on enough weight where you could see her face and everything. And they were
Mm.
taking shots of her face. They wouldn't film her body at times. Honestly, you could tell there was issues in the production in series 4 and series 5. So I'm looking, and once again I will say, I just don't know if she was the correct character or actress to play this role. She looked great at first.
Yeah. Well, basically, what had happened around that time, I think it was around season 5 or 6. She was pregnant. So you're definitely not wrong about the whole weight aspects. She was pregnant. I think that was part of the reason why they ended the show the way they did, was because she was getting ready to have a baby, and I think by that point, around the time she got pregnant and they were getting ready to wind up the series, I think what started off, and obviously we'll get to that point as we go along here, but I think what happened was with Supergirl, a show that started off so strong, it kind of just went off the cliff a bit round about season 5. I mean, still had good episodes, still held up pretty well, but it just kind of went off the cliff. And I think they realized that, and rather than just drag it out like they'd have done with certain other shows, they just kind of decided that, you know what, we've gone as far as we can go here, so
They
we
ran
might.
into the brick wall
Mm,
because they should have gone with the whole Legends of Tomorrow aspect. Should have been superhero of the week. It should have been just take one of the characters and put them, rather than having a show every single day. It should have been at this stage, right? Film 12 feature length movies for these characters, and then about 40 episodes between the lot of them, and then throughout the year, that would actually work out as 52, by the way. So that'd be perfect for the year. Yeah. And just have them on all year round, where you do every 2 to 3 months you do a special. And I think it would have lowered the budget. It would have accelerated the storylines to where we could have watched the different characters. They're all involved in intertwining storylines. Nobody would have cared if they'd all had Supergirl instead of Superman, or Flash and Arrow instead of Flash and, you know, whoever else. We should have started to have got around about series 1 and 2 of Supergirl. I reckon they realized that we should have gone down the road of, this should have just been a villain of the week situation for each character, or whichever respective character or characters are involved in this week. It shouldn't have been a separate series for every single character, because like you said, they just ran into a brick wall. Same ideas, same filler, same crap. That, you know, these series should have been 12 episodes long from the start, never mind 24 and 21 and 22. You know, it was just too much. They didn't have the writing, they didn't have the mind for it. They couldn't take enough material from the stories to be able to create storyline arcs. And whenever they tried to do that, they just felt like they were like teasing us with like flashback episodes. So yeah, when I look back at it now, I think there is a reason why this series went downhill. They didn't have the manpower or the thinking for it. And, you know, I will actually say that this did go off a cliff more than any of the other series, because this started off higher. Like Arrow built itself up to quite a fever pitch and then sunk quite quickly. Flash went off and people trusted it, and then it went off. Yeah,
yeah.
after a few series, it went off. But Supergirl started with an absolute explosion. People were really, in fact, I will go as far as say that Supergirl, when it first debuted, was immediately the best and most popular out of all 3 or
It
4 what
was.
was out at the time, because of the fact she was a female. So that appealed to all men and all women, or that would be a fan of this, of course.
Well, I remember at one point, Flash and Supergirl for me were tied as my best shows. I mean, I was still a Flash guy through and through, but Supergirl was really creeping up there. You know, she was really putting out good, strong episodes every single week,
Yeah.
and those two shows were tied to me. Arrow, although still a
Arrow
good show,
suffered as well. Arrow
Arrow
suffered as
suffered a
well
lot.
because when you look at it, the main three, Supergirl, Arrow, and the Flash, once they had all three simultaneous, they struggled. So basically, when the Flash came around and Supergirl came around, Arrow suffered because they didn't have the production to keep working on good Arrow episodes. But once they realized that Arrow was failing and they went back to Arrow to try and make it better, Supergirl immediately started to suffer. And then subsequently down the line, of course, it got dragged out. We know the deal. They had 6 series of writing that they should have crammed into 3, or they should have just crammed it into like shorter series. But because they gave us, when you look at Supergirl, Flash, and Arrow, you're talking over 300 or almost 300 episodes of television here, Warhawk.
I
You know
know.
what I mean? You're talking 300 episodes of TV. Mate, if you could sit through 150 of them again now, you'd have more credit than me because after 20 of them, you'd start scratching your head and saying, how did I get through this? But at the time, you were invested in what it was. It was a little bit like what wrestling has become for me, where it's like, I watch for the sake of watching.
Exactly. I mean, no, it's true what you're saying. It's almost like they invested so much in Supergirl and the Flash. Arrow started to fail, but then once they see Arrow's failing, then they go back, and then the other shows started failing. So you can't really win, really. But for me, one of the highlights of Supergirl was Callista Flockhart, who played, like as you mentioned, Ali McBeal. She played Cat Grant in Supergirl. To me, she was one of the main reasons I loved watching the show. Her dry humor, the way she would break the fourth wall, she was just a blast to watch. And I felt when Cat Grant left the show, I'm trying to remember when she left. I think she left about halfway through season 3. The show lost some of that comedic magic because without her, I felt the show started to go downhill a little bit. It's kind of like when Cisco left the Flash. It
There
was
was
like
so
something
much
was missing.
betrayal. There was so much betrayal and backstabbing and situations in season 3 that it just left you confused. Who is on whose side here? I
Yeah,
forget what's Kara's best friend, the boy. Finn, whatever his name was, the guy,
yeah,
the
yeah,
boy
yeah.
who she
Win,
worked with. You know what I'm on about, yeah? Is it Finn? Whatever his name was, yeah. He
win. That's it. Win.
win. Yeah, win. See,
That's it.
I'm even getting flashbacks now. Now I'm halfway through. I'm getting flashbacks now.
Yeah.
His character was completely retconned throughout the series multiple times just to suit the narrative of the storyline. One minute he's this badass who can help them. The next thing he's this damsel in distress with straight who knows what it was, because we haven't even got to this yet. But there was a massive shift with this show where they started to change the sexuality of everything in this show.
Well, I mean, me and my friend talked about this that with two characters in particular, Win and Jimmy Olsen. Now, to me, Win was Jimmy Olsen because he was like a fanboy, always making the pop culture references. He was like their Cisco of the show. But when I first saw him, I thought, wait a minute, is that's clearly supposed to be Jimmy Olsen because he had the little bow tie and he had the short hair. I thought, oh, it's Jimmy. But when they said Win, I went, huh? I was really, really confused. And then they had Jimmy Olsen come in, which was a big, tall, black man. And I thought, right, that's clearly supposed to be Ron Troop because I know Ron Troop from the Superman comics. And they still called him Jimmy. And I thought, right, my Jimmy Olsen's not a tall, smooth talking player who flirts with the ladies and gets with the chicks. That's not Jimmy Olsen. So it was confusing.
They did this in all 3 series as well. They did it with Adrian Chase, they did it with somebody in the Flash, and they did it with this person in Supergirl, where they just changed the character, but they also had given us a character that was that character but with a different name, if you know what I mean.
Yes, that's
Like,
what I
oh,
mean.
we're all screaming, this is Adrian Chase here. This is who this guy is. Oh, no, he's not this guy. He's Prometheus.
Yeah.
And then Adrian Chase, who's Vigilante, he's not. He's somebody else.
Well, it's like when Superman appeared in Supergirl, I think it was season 2 for 2 episodes, and he sees Jimmy again for the first time. The dynamic between the two was just odd because I always remember in the comics, even in the animated series, Jimmy would see Clark, goes, "Oh, hey, Mr. Kent. Oh, did you see Superman? Did you see what he did today?" He was like the fanboy. He worshipped Superman, but he also looked up to Clark as like a big brother. So when I saw Jimmy and Clark in Supergirl, it was just weird. It was almost like the nerd hanging out with the number one jock in high school. Goes like, "Hey, Clark, how you doing?" It's just like, huh? It really confused me. It was just weird. It was just a very weird dynamic. And
So
then,
this was the debut of the Superman and Lois Superman in this series, yeah?
yes,
Yeah.
that's right. That was his first appearance. He Tyler Hoechlin, who played in Teen Wolf, he played Superman in Supergirl. He was only like a guest character that he would just appear in like a couple of episodes because they'd already mentioned Superman a bunch of times in previous episodes, but we never saw him. But I always looked at it like we're never
Well,
ever going to get a Superman.
he was just a silhouette at first, wasn't he?
Yeah,
Like
he
they
was
did
just a
the
silhouette.
silhouette tease, and then eventually they had him get into the role and then say, right, we're gonna have to deliver. Because they knew they used the silhouette thing as a Superman's definitely going to appear in this series. So if you wanted him in Flash, if you wanted him in Arrow, you're definitely going to get him in this. And it
Yes.
was around this time that Gotham, which wasn't a CW show,
No.
was gaining crazy popularity. And Gotham was getting to that point where you knew that Bruce was actually going to become Batman, or you thought it at the time. So everybody expected the next series of Gotham, or maybe the last series of Gotham, to be with Bruce as like an older teenager going into the, Batman, early Batman years. Like everyone expected that. So I feel like CW was planning this type of thing to counteract that and compete with that.
Well, I mean, what they did with Supergirl, especially in the earlier seasons, I kind of had an issue with this, but over the course of time, I've just kind of learned to live with it, really. They would take classic Superman stories from the comic books and just switched it around and put a Supergirl in her place. And the prime example of that is one of the classic Superman stories was, which is one of my favorites, called "For the Man Who Has Everything." In that story, in the comic, Mongol gave Superman a quote unquote birthday gift, which was this mutant living plant which would recreate your ultimate fantasies and dreams. And in that one, Superman's dream was to live on Krypton, have children, and live with Jor-El and Lara. They did that with Kara, but they renamed it "For the Girl Who Has Everything." So I kind of had little issues with that. I thought, why aren't you just making your own original stories? Why are you plucking out the Superman stories and just reworking it into
Yeah, I
Super?
said that. I said that earlier on. That was when I said, right, seeing as we're just stealing ideas
Mm.
from other characters, can we just get a super villain of the week situation? What is the point in having 25 different episodes when we clearly have not got enough material for this character that is presentable on television at this point? We're having to steal other people's storylines. I mean, I don't really mind. I wouldn't mind us if when they did that with Smallville, they took Superman ideas and gave them to Clark, to the Superboy character. I'm fine with that. Yeah,
Yeah, I was fine with that.
because they did that with Superman anyway. They took elements of the Superboy character and gave them to Clark, especially in the New Adventures of Superman. They literally almost script for script rewrote certain episodes of Superboy, but why Superman was a man in New Adventures of Superman and Lois, or of Lois and Clark, or whatever it was called. They blatantly did. When you break it down, it might not be the same outcome, but they had the villain, same villain, like Bizarro or whatever the villain would be at the time. They'd have the villain, and it's like, right, so this is basically just a rehashed version of the Superboy story that we had a year ago. There
Yeah,
was
pretty
many
much.
a thing like that. They've been doing that for a long time, in fact.
That bothered me a lot with Supergirl because it was basically like me saying, "Well, if you're doing this, why didn't we just get a Superman show to start with? Why are we doing this in the first place?"
They
So
were scared. They were scared, and the budget. Honestly, I reckon that They should have spent the budget that they did on Man of Steel on just building a TV universe with Superman as the forefront of that. You can imagine what that would be now with HBO and all that type of stuff out there now.
Well, would have been well. We've pretty much have near enough got that now, virtually.
That's what I mean. You can only imagine what that would have been at this stage. And they've had certain people. They had Momoa. Momoa's obviously not got the same ego that other people have got. They've had him appear in television programs. They had Ezra Miller feature in the Peacemaker series. So egos can't be that high. Surely,
No,
10 years ago, they could have said to Henry Cavill, right, we're just going to throw all of your money into a 10-episode Superman series. That would be probably unprecedented at this point if that had been on HBO Max. In that time, with Game of Thrones around as well.
Exactly. That's what I mean. I think they, as you said, it was too much of a risk to take in case it might not have worked. That's why they didn't. I think that's why they didn't go down that path. Obviously, they look back now and think, well, maybe we should have done that then. But things were different then. So there's nothing.
Weird. It's weird though that they've still not learned though. The character isn't what you need to protect. It's the actual film that you are presenting to the public.
Yes.
Like we're long gone past. Oh, the character needs to be protected at all chances. We've seen how bad you can screw up these characters. Can we just get something that's decent on the screen?
Yes, exactly. So let's look at the villains for starters. So we'll start with my personal favorite. I mean, I don't really remember a main villain as such in season 1. I think the first villain was Maxwell Lord and Red Tornado, which was just a robot. But
oh my word, I was just about to say the best fucking villain in the whole series is the most underrated and underused villain, Red fucking Rocket or whatever his name was. What was his name? Red Tornado. That thing there, because that's what brought back the VR Troopers fought for me.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie.
I didn't like that villain. I didn't like Red Tornado. I mean,
I hated the way that they used him because he had the potential to be very, very powerful, but he had to have somebody else at the helm of him. Like, as in, like, could we have not just got him as like the henchman or the main end game to some weaker, less powerful boss that can use other villains? You know what I mean? Like, we needed less of a big bad that could fight, and we needed a big bad that could use characters like Red Tornado to be able to take down Korra, rather than just Red Tornado comes out of nowhere, is this massive threat for 27 minutes of the program. I swear to you, that episode was like because he comes into it twice. Red Tornado does.
Yes, that's right.
And I swear to you, on one of the episodes, it's like an episode straight out of Power Rangers and VR Troopers, Monster of the Week episode, where they literally just, in 27 minutes, he goes from being the biggest threat in the world to literally a bumbling mess on the screen.
Yeah, I didn't like Red Tornado that much.
Absolutely hated it.
You also had Maxwell Lord, I believe it was. Yeah.
It was Maxwell Lord, the same character that was in Wonder Woman 1984.
Yes, it was Maxwell Lord.
Obviously,
that's it.
not played by the same guy.
No.
He was played by a different guy. He looked completely different. Yeah, Maxwell Lord. He was the same character, but he was just played by a different person. But yeah, got to see him first in Supergirl.
Yeah, he was portrayed very well. He was a very good villain. He was kind of like the Lex Luthor of Supergirl, and then he just faded away after that.
Really, well, it was kind of like he was a bit like on their side, not on their side. Like, whose side is he on? Because I remember a few episodes where the sister, she pretended to like seduce him, or did he had some infatuation with her sister, who was clearly a lesbian. He had some infatuation with her, and then she ended up seducing him, or didn't he end up like brainwashing her, or there was something that went on with him? Wasn't there?
While,
definitely something.
I remember there was some sort of situation going on where he was trying to get with her and she wasn't having any of it, and I think he threatened to hurt Kara or something, or threatened to expose her.
What's the sister's name?
Alex
Danvers.
Yeah, Alex Danvers. I'm glad we're getting.
We could talk about her now. Yeah, we could talk about her now.
I'm glad. I know we said we'll do the villains, but I'm kind of glad we're going to get this one. out there.
Wait. She was a villain. I'm sorry, but she was a villain. She was not a hero. She was more like an anti-hero. There was multiple episodes where maybe I didn't pick up on her storyline arc and her redemption later on in the series, and I didn't probably after season 2 or 3. But at first, she was like, you couldn't trust her. Like, honestly, I don't know how much of the first series that you remember, but you couldn't trust her. She was a snake, and she was being controlled by other people in the first series. I'm almost certain that she was just as much of a thorn in the side. She was jealous of Kara as well. I swear to you, in the first series, she was jealous. She was doing all kinds of weird stuff, and she couldn't be trusted.
Alex Danvers, at the beginning, I didn't care much for her. Then after a while, she kind of grew on me. I thought, yeah, I don't mind Alex Danvers. She's cool. But then towards later on, she just got really, really annoying. You know, she just really got on my nerves. I remember, I think was it season 2, she kind of had this dilemma. Am I lesbian? Am I not? Can I have kids or not? And it'll just be every episode goes, I want to have kids too. Why can't I? You know, and all this. You just think, oh my goodness, this is yeah, she grew annoying after a while. And then they made her into a hero by the end of the series. I just thought, great, anyone can be a hero,
I
really.
swear at the first she was doing the whole detective
Well, she's
Agent
basically like Black
Ross,
Widow. She was like
Agent
the Black
Ross
Widow.
type of. Well,
Yeah,
I'm saying at first she was doing like the Agent Ross, Agent Thunderbolt Ross type of thing, where she's like taking down the main hero.
yeah, that's right. You had
Like
like the really sick hair.
whatever company she worked for, they had gone against. They'd been doing something behind the scenes, and
Oh, for
Cara and them
DPO.
figured it out, didn't they? And she worked for them, and then that's this because obviously we've not mentioned one major character in this. This is where the
Yeah.
the Martian Manhunter came from.
Ah, yes. Now, John Jones was played by what's his name?
The black
Uh,
guy from British television. I forget what his name is.
yes,
He's actually a lot older than you think he is. He's actually a
he
lot
is
older than you think he is. He's in great shape as well. I
David
forget what his name.
Harewood.
David. His name is. Yeah, you're right.
David Harewood, very respected actor, been around a long time. He was in a show called The Vice back in the
Yeah,
'90s on ITV.
the Idris Elba of like
Yes,
lower budget television.
he's a really good actor, and he, as I remember him back then to now, he hasn't aged a single day. He still looks the same, still in great shape, still a great actor. And for me, he was one of the highlights of Supergirl. He was a really good John Jones. I thought he was really good, and he also played Cyborg Superman as well. Hank Henshaw, who's the original DEO who Martian Manhunter took the form of.
Yeah, that was it. He was the DEA guy. Well, that's what I mean. Him and Kara, because of his secret in the first series, like it was almost like you couldn't trust them.
Not at
And
first,
it,
no.
this, obviously, this wasn't officially part of the Arrowverse at first, from what I remember, and I think you've confirmed that as well. I feel like they didn't have the background falling of knowing that everybody else is going to compare this to the other shows. So
Yeah,
any behavior that's like that is like crouching in games, video games. Characters are going to feel like, why is this guy walking around crouching? What's he being suspicious for? Like,
exactly.
this is how this was. I was looking at Kara, even the dad. Remember the dad, Dean Kane? He goes missing in it, yeah?
Yes.
They left it so you were like, is he going to turn out to be some kind of powered guy? Which side is he on? What did he do? Why did he sacrifice? There was all this behind the scenes who done it situation as well. It was mad. Honestly, Supergirl had 6 seasons worth of madness in the first 2 seasons. But
That's
then
what
they couldn't get to the 6th or 7th season without falling apart. Like, it's the whole, what I've said to you, it's the whole island flashbacks from Arrow. Like,
that's right.
if we'd have just gave us 4 episodes of the island, every 6 episodes give us a flashback episode, it would have slowed down that pace. Because giving us a little drib every week, it made it confusing after a little bit. Then once you got to the 2nd and 3rd season, you could tell that they had no more footage of these flashbacks that they filmed in 2 separate episodes 2 years before. You could even see that the way that the flashback episodes were in season 2 and season 3, or season 2 definitely, they would have a different quality of the film, and the budget had gone up, and you know what I mean? Like, you could tell,
Yeah.
like there'd been bits, they'd literally just filmed a section of filming and then just spliced these 2-minute clips into each episode for 2 series, and it was like, yo, these are outdated now. You need to get way beyond the island of death situation with Oliver and the black and white stuff, and just focus on what's happening here and now.
Oh, absolutely, totally. I think for me, David Harewood, he was the glue that held the show together. He, as John Jones, I felt that he generated a lot of interest at times when the show was not generating any interest. So having him just in the show, even if it was just like a couple of episodes, I mean, he played a very big
I know,
part.
and I know it caused a lot of issues online on Twitter as well, because a lot of people were saying, like, you know, like feminist Mardy saying, oh,
Yeah.
what, we couldn't just have a lead female role without having a male backer up. They desperately needed Martian Manhunter in this
Oh,
series within
absolutely.
10 episodes. Her and Alex were not strong enough actresses to
No,
carry this program.
no, they weren't. They
And
didn't
have
have
you
the
noticed that,
charisma.
Ling? Each series has had a person who's been linked to British television. Each series has almost had a fallback actor who could actually act in the series.
Yes, and usually it's someone who's been
Because
around a long
Walter
time
in
as well.
Arrow, he was played by the black guy who we've seen on British TV. He was in Bad Girls. He was in a few other things before. You know, I'm on about Walter, who played the guy who
Yes,
was
yes,
married, the
yes,
black
yes.
guy who was married to Oliver's mum and that. Yeah, he is a very well-known actor from England who's played some high profile. He's been in James Bond, in fact.
Yes, he was actually. He was in the couple of the Pierce Brosnan movies.
Tomorrow Never Dies,
Yes,
and
that's right.
the world is not enough. I'm sure it was him.
I don't remember him in World Is Not Enough. I definitely remember him in Tomorrow Never Dies.
Well,
Um,
whichever one was which Die Another Day, World Tomorrow Never Dies, Die Another Day, I think it was. Like,
yeah,
he was definitely in those 99, 98, 99, 2000, 2001, 2002 Bond movies. Or movies.
well, I think you needed someone like Harewood. As I said, that if not for him, I think the show would have just completely collapsed on itself. He carried the show. I think he was one of those guys. I felt I wouldn't have minded seeing him get his own series because he was that good.
I
As John
thought that's
Jones.
where it was heading. I thought that's what we were getting. He was just a tease character for another
That's what I
series. But
thought.
once again, as I say, this had the Power Rangers feel to it. We've got 4 different locations that we can film in. Everything has to be filmed in this location. So we're filming 23 episodes worth of location in this location. So,
Yeah,
so in each episode, we're going to have a 4 or 5 minute segment twice, or 3 minutes of filming twice in each thing, where we do a original meeting and then rendezvous in the control room, which we've got the Team Arrow or Team Flash room. We're going to have to film that 32 times today.
that's another
you,
thing as
you know
well.
you can almost tell that they were the filming schedule of these series must have been gruesome.
Oh, absolutely, they were. I think another thing as well with Supergirl was again everyone had the team, didn't they? Team Arrow, Team
Yeah,
Flash, and Team Supergirl. Okay, Team Arrow, I can let that off a little bit because Oliver Queen did have a few sidekicks in the comics.
and he didn't have any powers, and he did not have any powers. Let's not forget that.
No, he did not. Flash, yeah, the Team Flash thing, yeah, 50-50 on that. And Team Supergirl, yeah, that just, yeah, I wasn't a fan of that. Sorry.
Well, can we name? Does anyone care to name, apart from the Martian Manhunter, who are the characters that were on Team Supergirl?
Right, we have Brainiac 5, who's actually a proper DC character. We had Brainiac 5, we had Alex Danvers, John Jones, and Lena Luthor, Lex Luthor's sister. We'll get to her very shortly.
Yeah, Lena came into it later when they took out the Addie McBeal character.
Yes,
I'm gonna
Lena.
be perfectly honest. She was about as handy as the young female who came into the Flash in the later series. Calypso or Callisto or whatever her name is.
Allegra.
Allegra, yeah, whatever. Yeah,
Well, I
the
mean,
exotic name. She's got powers.
yeah, that came later. Now, Lena Luthor came in season 2.
Sorry, no, I tell you who she is. She's Mr. Terrific. That's who
Yeah.
she is, Mr. Terrific. Like, you might dress up like a badass and you might look like a badass, but you don't portray Mr. Terrific very well. We've already got to know your character. You are quite campy, quite feminine. You are not a guy who should be standing up to other people, if I'm honest, regardless of how they've changed your sexuality, changed your character, whatever it is. You wouldn't have been afraid of Mr. Terrific from Arrow.
No, no, definitely not. Lena Luthor came into Supergirl in season 2. She's played by Katie McGrath, who's in Merlin. So a very respected British actress. Been on the British television shows here and there. I thought the direction that was going with Lena Luthor, she was going to be the Lex Luthor of the show. It would have been like the same sort of thing with Smallville, where Lex found out Clark had powers, and then he just went to the dark side. I thought that was where we was heading with Lena Luthor. And at first, she definitely had that "whose side is she on" dynamic. One minute she's Kara's best friend, next you know she's shooting someone and putting their body under the table and things like that.
And what a surprise that they got it wrong.
Yes.
She should have been nothing but a bad person from the start. We should have
Yes,
had
she
the
should.
signs. The name Luthor does not say she's friendly. No one's
Far from
friendly
it.
as Luthor. We
No.
accepted 10 series, 10, and I mean 10 series of Smallville where they teased, and they still had to add in Lionel Luthor because they knew no one's going to buy the Luthor name as being completely pure and innocent and triggered in this.
No, of course
People are
not.
gonna people only want to see the Lex Luthor or the Luthor name that is involved in the literal downfall and the end, basically the end of Hulkamania, so to speak.
Yes.
Like, that's how comic books were built. That's how wrestling was built. Which, let's be fair, wrestling was just a live action, they couldn't get the comic books off the ground because wrestling was so popular. Like, people don't understand the link between those two things. Like, they couldn't get the comic books off the ground because the wrestling characters were too superhero and cartoony and believable. Like, they had superpowers. Honestly, I'm not even joking when I say that. Like, we grew up in an era with Stone Cold and The Rock and that just beating ass, like badasses beating up people. They didn't have that same spiritual value that Ultimate Warrior and Hogan and all those Macho Man did, because them guys were like superheroes come to life, weren't they? They were honestly like real life cartoon characters and superheroes brought to life. I think wrestling killed a lot of comic books getting off the ground. You should never, ever, ever go down that road of having a character that you should have as a straight out bad person. Like Street Fighter, the film, you just retcon multiple characters and make them good and make them bad as you will and please. No, you cannot do that with these types of properties. You have to have names like Luthor synonymous with being just evil.
Exactly. What was your thoughts on Katie McGrath as Lena Luthor?
Poorly cast, poorly written. Never really knew who she was. Never really knew what side she was on. The whole time I'm just sitting there thinking, well, she's a Luthor, so
It's got to
it's
be
like
bad.
being a horseman. She's a horseman. Like, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? She's going to be bad. Like, eventually, they never
Not.
really went all in. Like same with Lex Luthor in Smallville. They people learned to love the character, so the producers decided not to go full evil, take down Clark Lex.
Not yet, anyway.
I mean, he had his moments, didn't he? But
Yeah, he did.
it came across to me as Rita Repulsa towards the end.
Eventually,
Like,
yeah.
that's just me. I'm just saying that. I'm just saying. This is where you lead. There is a thin comic books and TV programs, and I want people to really listen into what I'm saying here right now. Comic books and this Marvel DC universe is the bridge of the gap between Power Rangers, Ninja Turtles, and all that, and wrestling and all that. Movies, wrestling, all that. It's the bridge of the gap between those two things. Do you understand where I'm coming from? As
Yeah,
in,
totally.
these are not, they're not robots. They're not robots per se. The geniuses can build those type of things, but you understand where that's coming from. There's a genius level of evil in these things and a genius level of good. But not every good person is clever. Not every bad person is clever. Not every good person is strong. Not every good person is, you know, see where I'm coming from? They make it so there's an even that world. It's the world of good and evil. Now, once again, wrestling accentuated that in front of your eyes. It took years for the comic book world to realize to take this from the piece of paper to live action. You've almost got to turn it into a bit of a parody of what it is. But I feel there's too many times that they've gone too far with the parody and they've not gone with enough realness. And this is exactly one of those examples. Her character, you cannot get the Luther name out of your mind in the DC universe. Once you hear that name, you just sort of like, you know, Wayne, Kent, Luther. You know, you know these names, don't you? You think, right, we know what we're gonna get here. We know exactly what we're gonna get. You take away that. Can you imagine Kara's character if we'd have seen what she was at the end, at the start? No one would have watched this program. Who's this?
No.
This is not Supergirl. It's nothing to do
Yeah.
with Supergirl. Can you imagine Oliver's character being the Arrow, the traitor Arrow towards the end, who did all the snaky stuff and all the setting people up and all that, like to save this city? No, we wouldn't have bought that.
No, of course not. For me, Katie McGrath as Lena Luthor started off pretty decent. At times, it looked like she was going to be a villain. I was quite invested into that. And then after a while, it just kind of just went snooze mode for me, really.
Yeah, they couldn't figure it out.
They just couldn't work out
It's
what they
nothing to
wanted to
do with
do.
her acting, which wasn't great, and I'm going to say which wasn't fantastic at times. You could tell that she switched off.
Yeah.
You could tell she blatantly switched off. She was clearly bought in. I mean, she had been someone before, or she was known for something. The character, the actress, was known for something before she took that role, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was in Merlin.
Yeah. So she'd obviously, once again, this is another character that had been on British television,
Yes.
that had
Yes,
been
she
built
was.
up, etc. But then when they got hold of her, they realized that her acting ability was way beyond most of the people in the program. So they made it so that she was, oh, we'll do this with her. And it was more of a, like you said, it was more of a, she kind of kept you watching the program, and then you realize, what are they actually doing with her? She was a bit like bringing in a top star. Like, once again, going back to the wrestling analogy, she was like bringing in AEW, bringing in a WWE star, and then doing absolutely nothing with them. She was Bret Hart for the first year. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
yeah.
In W, they did not. She did. They could have done something with her. They could have turned her into the main big bad. But I feel like they just twiddled their thumbs for too long and used her name as a way of getting, right, let's get people in the door first, and then we'll think, oh no, she's keeping people around. Right, we'll just give her nothing to do for the next 6 episodes. And then when it comes time, oh, we can't really give her that storyline there because we've already gone down this road here. Right, let's just give her a background role, etc. And then before you know, after those 8 episodes, everyone's just kind of like, well, what was she brought in the program for?
Yeah, I mean, I was quite disappointed that they never fully paid off Lena Luthor's turn to the dark side, because I thought
It
that's
was coming. It was coming. It was
it was
definitely coming
coming,
at one point.
but they just flopped, really. So let's get to some of the villains now. Obviously, we had Maxwell Lord, we had Cyborg Superman. Now for season 3, for me, this could very well be the best Supergirl villain of the entire show. Rain, the World Killer. What did you think of her, Rex? What do you remember about Rain?
I don't remember too much because this is where I sort of phased out of Supergirl, but I remember it
Yeah.
being a very serious big bad. And because I
Yes.
think it was, I believe Rain's female, yeah?
Yes. Rain.
Rain's a female character. So it was like, they, I didn't notice it then, but I notice it now. They'd started to build a very female orientated world here.
Yes, they were starting to head that way.
So it was definitely fitting. I think that the Rain character was fitting for Supergirl, but at this point, I started to drift in and out. I'd watch one episode, and then I wouldn't watch another one for like 3 to 4 weeks, and then I'd watch another episode, and I wouldn't, you know, etc., etc.,
Yeah.
etc.
Rain, for me, was probably the best Supergirl villain of the entire show. Imagine if General Zod ditched Faora and just married a female Doomsday. That was what she was like. She had a very unique look. She basically looked like she could have come from Man of Steel. She had like this black metallic suit with a cape. The Mask was a bit OTT, but I think the Mask for Rain was very very interesting because her whole mask headset gear thing, it looked like a spider's web, and her voice was like she was a machine. You know, it everything
Who
about.
was the who was the Goldberg character, or not Goldberg character, but he looked a bit like old Goldberg. I want to say his name was Khan. Was it Khan? Something Khan.
Non.
Yeah, and
That
he
was
was
from the
either a
earlier. That's from
henchman.
season one. That was from season one. The
Was
big
that
one.
from season one?
Who the big guy?
No, he wasn't too big. He just had that like old grey man, but like old bodybuilder look to him.
Oh, that was in
He,
season one, I believe.
and he had like a staff. Oh, I swear it was
Oh
like
no no no
later
no.
in the thing. It was called something Khan. I swear it was
Yeah,
either
that was
season 3 or
later.
season 4.
That was season. I think that was season 6 or 5.
Was that season 5?
I believe
Like
so. Yeah.
I remember tuning into a few episodes at some point and seeing this. It was like a staff wielder,
Yeah,
and
that was end of season 5. That was.
he had some kind of he had like a like not telepathic ability, but he had like Matilda. He could move objects and all that
Yeah.
type of stuff ability. He was very very powerful. Yeah, and I thought
He was part of
this
a.
guy's gonna be it.
He was part of a group of villains called the Leviathan.
Right, right. I remember the name, the Leviathan, and I
Yeah,
also remember there
that was
being.
later.
Is this where the Kryptonians had come in? Because I know she had some problems with the Kryptonians. Like it was either a stepmom or it was someone, it was auntie
And
or
that was
something like that came in it.
oh, they came around about season 2. Rain came in season 3. Yeah,
Because
Rain.
Rain had a mask, didn't she? She had like a black mask. Like
Yeah,
I
it
want to
looked
say
like a
she had like a
spider's web.
Batman style mask. Like
It
not
was like
Batman like that, but you know what I mean.
it was like imagine if Catwoman made her mask out of metallic webbing. That's what it looked like, and
And
she was.
she also had like it wasn't quite the Superman, but it was she had a symbol, didn't she? Like she had her own like triangular chest symbol.
Yeah, it was like what
I can see Rain. I could see her.
yeah, it was what General Zod had in Man of Steel. He had like just like General Zod, she had like this black metallic suit with the mask and this very long cape, but it wasn't like a cape in a heroic way. It was more like a robe, and she was just a monster. And she was played by an actress named Odette Annabelle. Not a very well known actress, very pretty, very very attractive, and she was just phenomenal as Rain. She gave season 3. Now, put it this way: if you took season 1 and 2, they were quite light-hearted with a tad bit of family drama. Rain comes in season 3, kicks the door down, and says, "I'm taking over, and there's nothing any of you can do about it." And she was just fantastic. She the episode where her and Supergirl go at it, she just absolutely demolished Supergirl. She made her bleed. And for me, I thought, oh, we're gonna actually do the death arc here. We're actually gonna do this. And they didn't kill her off, obviously. They didn't kill off Supergirl. They put her into a coma. And as I said, she was just a phenomenal villain. And I
And
think
Kara still had the innocent look to her at this stage as
yeah,
well,
she
didn't
was
she? She
still
still
the
had the
innocent.
yeah,
Yeah,
she still
yeah.
had that innocent look to her where you knew she was in trouble, and it still had that selling point. Like, wow, they finally. I mean, one thing I'll give credit for with Kara is you always knew that she had the power, but it was more of a situation of when is she going to unlock her true force and power.
Yes.
Whereas with the Flash, you always got that he's just going to outthink the situation and use some kind of. It was never Flash would never defeat them. I think he defeated a couple of villains in the end with power, but it was always trickery and wizardry with the
He
Flash that
uses head
started to
knowledge.
really drive me mad towards because of the fact that we were dealing with the most evil types of beings in the Flash, and they really played them up. It spread over to Supergirl a little bit. I feel like they built these real big bads, like not had like Arrow, where it's like we've got 5 different people who could end up being the big bad. This is the real big bad.
Yeah, she was the real big bad. And
Everything, everything that came after Deathstroke was an issue because they built Deathstroke up so powerfully
mm,
that it made it almost like, well, how? And then he was a side big bad. He wasn't even the big bad to where they had to bring him back and it didn't work. But with these series, it was more like, right, let's just find a big bad. But then what happened was the big bad's always outmatched Kara. She just looked so weak. So, which in other words meant it was technically, once again, is it a Supergirl series or was this a Supergirl / Martian Manhunter thing? Because there was around these series here, season 2, 3, and 4, where she can't survive without him.
Well, what happened in this one, which made season 3 really stand out to me, was you had Rain. You know, she didn't have not like with most villains we see in the Arrowverse. You have the main big bad, but they always have like the side villains doing their dirty work. No, and Rain didn't have anyone. She just arrived, challenged Supergirl, and just basically just systematically murdered her. Really, there's one way of putting it. And for me, Rain was kind of like the Deathstroke of the show. You know, and I think with the problem with Supergirl in the villains department, I think Rain, as you said about Deathstroke, Rain was built up so powerful, so dark, and so evil
Yep.
that any villain that came after couldn't follow her because she made such an
It's
impact.
because they got scared around this time. This is where Arrow was in season 4, 5,
Mm.
6 maybe, and they realized looking back, wow, we're never going to be able to build up anyone like we did with Deathstroke. We should have saved Deathstroke for like series 5, series 6, and had him carry these series as an anti-hero / Oliver doesn't like what he's doing, but he's doing the same thing that Oliver's doing. So they lead into a battle of the good guys / anti-heroes. That would have been what the program should have been built around. So what they decided to do was in all of the series, and by this time, remember, we were getting multiple other series on the horizon and in production and
Yes.
actually on the screen. They just built these big bads, 16 episodes of random stuff that led into maybe 3 or 4 storyline arcs, and then this big who's going to stop this. But I feel like in Supergirl, we never really got a resolution. It was always like, same thing with the Flash. Let's trap them in this box where they can never come back until somebody presses this button in maybe 25 years' time or whatever, rather than it being, let's blow them into smithereens and destroy them and send them, you know what I mean?
Mm.
They don't kill, do they? They don't. Oliver had no problem ending people. Whereas
No,
with
he
this
had to. He would.
series, these do not kill. They've obviously all. They never really get set, does it? But they don't kill, do they?
No,
Batman would outright say, "I don't kill. We don't kill." Yeah,
that's not what we
but they
do.
weren't saying it. But they don't kill.
Now, the thing with Rain was after they defeated her, because Rain had this split personality thing going on, which was quite interesting as well. Once they got rid of Rain, they never brought her back again. I think they did bring her back very briefly in like a dream sequence with Mixie's Pitalik, but a couple seasons later. But they never ever brought her back fully, and I was quite disappointed because I wanted to see more of her. You know, whereas like with Deathstroke, they did bring him back a few times in later seasons. They never brought Rain back again, which really disappointed me
Spent too
because
much money on the suit, yeah, and we needed to get use
I
out
mean
of the suit. You know what I mean?
she was very. The thing about Rain, and I never really mentioned about it enough, she was very, very good looking.
Yeah,
Yeah,
beautiful,
she
beautiful
was
female. I mean,
very.
I'll say this now. Across all of the series that were in the, and we've never really spoken about this, like as in an actual subject. We've just sort of hinted upon it as the time's gone on.
Mm.
But yeah, they had some absolutely beautiful, mainly British and Canadian females in these programs.
Yeah, the actress who played Rain, I think she was. I think she was Canadian, I believe.
They definitely knew how to build up and then ruin a female for you within the space of about 2 series, because multiple female characters would have you mesmerized with them for about 6 or 7 episodes, and then they'd put them through hell or whatever they'd do, or they'd kill them off, or they'd get rid of them, or they'd send them away. Multiple characters, when you think about it, like loads of man had crushes on Felicity, loads of man had crushes on Laurel, loads of man had crushes on Sarah, loads of man had crushes on Thea, loads of man had crushes on Supergirl herself, on
Yeah,
Alex, loads of man had crushes on some of the girls from the Flash, you know, like Caitlin, etc. Like they built a lot of these females up to be, you know, the girl next door. You will fall in love with her. Even Jesse Quick, characters like that, they built them up so that you would fall for them very, very quickly. They would have that mesmerizing, oh yeah, she's my best mate, or I'd love for her to be my girlfriend, sort of. You know what I'm on about. They did. They managed to draw in. They always went with that 6, 7 out of 10 looking girl and turned her into this mesmerizing thing. They were
Yeah.
great at that. The CW, I don't know if it's Greg Berlanti himself, but the CW was incredible at doing that. So when it spread to Supergirl, they knew. But then I feel like once again, and we will hit on this before the end, the sexuality twist of the whole show, it really affected the dynamic of the way that you looked at characters in this series above all of the other series.
So we move on to season 4. Now, season 4 for me, I've said in like a past video, I always looked at season 4 as probably the best season of the show. And it was quite interesting because you had quite a lot of villains in this one. You had Agent Liberty, the Elite, the Red Daughter, who's the Russian evil clone of Supergirl, and you had Lex Luthor, who finally appeared in the
What's his
Arrowverse.
name? John. What's the guy's
John
name?
Cryer from Two and a Half Men.
Yeah,
Now
Two
we
and a
got
Half
to talk about.
Men. What is it? What was he from? He was
With Charlie.
for a couple of them films in the late 80s and early 90s
Yeah,
as well, wasn't it? A couple of them like not Top Gun, but you know what I'm on about.
yeah. So we got to get straight into this because we've seen and we've heard the name Luthor. We've heard Lex Luthor mentioned a lot. What was your thoughts on John Cryer cast as Lex Luthor? I mean, I'm dying to hear your thoughts about this.
Well, we're gonna have to break this down into different things because his acting obviously speaks for itself. I
Yes,
actually was really impressed with what he did as
absolutely.
Lex Luthor and seeing this funny, let's be honest, quite ridiculed comedian because
Yeah,
he's always been the runt of the litter type of comedian, and you know who John Cryer is when you think about it. You know exactly who he has always been. He's always the little runt cousin, never taken
he
seriously,
actually
little
played.
brother. You know what I mean?
He actually played Lex Luthor's nephew in Superman 4.
That's where I was thinking before. Yes, he was. He was Lex Luthor's nephew, wasn't he?
Yeah, Lenny
He had the
Luthor.
Lenny. Yeah, he had the quiff and that, didn't he? When he was in
He
the
had like a
film and
little
that. Yeah.
mohawk quiff.
Yeah.
Uh,
I can actually see him. That's what I'm seeing when I'm saying,
big
what
zap.
was he in? He was in one of them late 80s, early 90s films. Yeah, you know what? You're right. He was in one of them Superman films. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, but the baggy
Um,
pants.
so
Yeah, the
he was a
bike.
recast character in the DC universe as well. So yeah, shout out to him for being another one of them. But at the same time, I'm gonna say his acting and his ability was fantastic. My initial thought was, wow, am I supposed to actually be fearful of this type of guy? But then at the same time, I'm thinking, well, that's exactly what Lex Luthor is, isn't he? He's the I can't, because I watched Smallville not long before, or started watching Smallville around the time that he entered the Supergirl universe. What's very strange is I noticed Lex Luthor had the whole, he was hit by the meteorite blast and he didn't have superpowers, but he was almost weakened from the kryptonite and stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like it took away
Yeah,
his hair and all that type of stuff, yeah? Which gave him genius sort of intellect, but also made him a more weaker person, yeah? I thought, yeah, Lex Luthor is the chicken shit heel who hides behind the giant or monster or whatever who protects him, the Shawn Michaels Diesel thing. He's that guy, isn't he? And I thought, you know what, John Cryer might end up turning out to be incredible with that, but there is a big problem and there's a big but here. This should have been Lex Luthor fighting against Superman. You should have never had this.
no.
Like against, I'm gonna be honest, it made me cringe at times to see a man taking on, wanting to destroy and take on a female like that.
Yeah,
Like it's honestly, I was looking at this from a real perspective because of the sexuality twist. I'm quite shocked that they actually bought in, but then I get it now. They bought in a real, let's just say, a skullduggery and assholery driven comedian who they know may have some real life opinions on certain types of behavior and has been involved with Charlie Sheen for a lot of his career,
yeah,
misogynistic, womanizing it. John Cryer is not separate from that. Like he may have come across as the innocent little brother of Charlie in the program, but he has also had a lot of controversy behind the scenes and stuff like that, and he's had issues with substances and all that kind of stuff like that. So to bring him in, it was weird because it was like he's perfect for Lex Luthor, but he's terrible for Supergirl.
yes. I
I don't know
agree.
what you think. I don't know what you think about that, but I feel like straight away I clocked that. I thought it's the wrong. He would have been better off in Superman and Lois.
Yeah, yeah. Well, unfortunately, he's not going to be appearing in Superman Lois. They've gone with someone completely different. Well,
Backstage politics,
yeah.
apparently.
Well, my thoughts when John Cryer was announced that he was appearing in Supergirl and he was going to be playing Lex Luthor, I was absolutely terrified. I thought, please, dear Lord. The thing was, though, with John Cryer being cast as Lex Luthor, I was terrified because I thought we're just going to get Jesse Eisenberg 2.0. I was absolutely terrified. I thought this is not going to work. This
Over the top,
this is going to be.
screechy
That's what I was
comedy.
expecting.
Yeah, yo, honestly, to be perfectly honest, I was stunned at how serious and evil. I only seen a few trailer clips of him before I went and watched some of the full episodes, and they were actually running reruns of I think season 4
Yeah,
of
that's season 4.
Supergirl on some things. I didn't actually know he was in the program until season 5.
Mm.
But once again, my initial thought when I thought, "Whoa, they brought him in," was like, please, for the love of all comics, and that please do not have him. You know, we know that I need more Danny DeVito than I do as the Penguin, than
Yeah,
I do, you
John Cryer,
know, Jim Carrey
the
as the
Riddler.
Riddler. I don't need that.
We
Like
don't.
honestly, I'll be honest with you. Like, especially with the way that YouTube was going around that time as well, where people had started to really come out of the woodwork and say how ungodly awful were those Batman films in the 90s. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's when that started to happen. Like, you got to think the AGVN, Angry Video Game Nerd, some of these nostalgia critic and them, they'd started to build their massive platforms around the time that these series had started to take off. And they had started to go back on the old films and say, look at the disgusting portrayal of these characters. But then we started to see, right, they're taking massive risk on television with intellectual characters. Like Lex Luthor is a main DC character, no matter who you think is a superhero or a supervillain. He is a main character. To give John Cryer that role was a massive risk.
And it paid off.
It did pay off because he was movie level evil on screen. And
He
it just
was.
goes to show that he may have had a career that was wasted on television because he was clearly an Hollywood trained actor. He clearly had the ability to be in movies. They wouldn't have cast him in, well, I say they wouldn't have cast him in Superman 3 or 4, whatever he was in, but they were looking for. It's not a surprise that he came full circle back around.
Well,
Like
I mean,
Dean Cain, these guys, because they came from a generational thing of take the role, don't worry about the money. Whereas after
just
them
take.
came the generation of I want money to play these roles.
Yeah, you pay me well to do these
Yeah, well,
roles.
think about it. He came around in the era of Superman movies costing like 12 million to make the whole thing. I
Yeah.
remember the Superman films got less money for each film, whereas the Batman films got more and more and more and more and more. And he got signed to that Superman film deliberately because he was an upcoming comedian, actor who would have basically sold his soul to be in anything like that.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing was with John Cryer in Supergirl season 4, although Lex Luthor only appeared in 3 episodes, for me, those 3 episodes really stood out to me. He put on an epic performance. To me, looking at him as Lex Luthor, it was like they took Lex Luthor from the Alex Ross DC comics. Alex Ross was the guy who done the comic designs at the time. It's like they took him from the Alex Ross comic books and brought him to life in live action. He was looked exactly like Lex Luthor. He acted exactly how I would expect Lex Luthor to act. Very calm, very smart, very sneaky, very evil, and was always right about everything, or in his own mind anyway.
I
Always had
think
to
it
get the last
I
word.
think it also shows as well that any level of actor is important. When you look at Lex Luthor's character, John Barrowman's character, Manu
Yeah,
Bennett's character, they are played almost to perfection. It's
they
only
are.
because of the shitty scripting and forced writing that it goes a bit wrong in certain things and certain aspects. But when they are on the screen, they command the screen. Absolutely command the screen. Whereas everybody else that they built, the Stephen Amell's, Grant Gustin's, no disrespect to any of them, but they didn't have that in them.
No.
The show gave them that. This is the Green Arrow or Flash or whatever. They built the show, they built the production around that. Whereas with those actors that already had that, even just that minuscule or any version of acting. Now, let's not forget Manu Bennett had been in some pretty strong programs like Spartacus, etc., etc. He'd been in a few, mid DVD sort of level films in the late 2000s, early 2010s. When these guys hit the screen, you could feel them.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show casting isn't always about the visual. Like,
Yeah.
I was worried sick that John Cryer was not, even John Barrowman. These guys were not strong enough people to be on the screen and be believable as, leading guys in a villain role.
No,
But
of course they won't.
they blew their roles away. I'll be honest with you. Once again, the villain of the week thing. If you would have thought about even just 10 series of anything, and 3 of the biggest villains are Deathstroke, Lex Luthor, and say Prometheus. Not Prometheus. It was the Dark Archer, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was John Barrowman's character.
They were deep characters, man. They were strong
Oh, they
villains.
were.
And if you throw in Rain and maybe 1 or 2 other villains, you don't really need all this like over the top. Do you know where I'm coming from? You don't really need all this over the top random villain of the week situation. Them guys could have carried all of the series. I think they could have been built strong enough where they had to team up together to take down some of these characters.
Oh, absolutely, totally. I mean, with John Cryer's Lex Luthor, as I said, even though he's only in 3 episodes, he was the best, probably one of the best things about season 4. He was so
I
good.
think he was. I think they got so deep into the program by the middle of season 4, you probably couldn't tell people that much about season 4, but you can definitely remember Lex Luthor.
Oh, totally. And another guy who kind of got overlooked here, but he was equally as brilliant, was Sam Witwer. He played Agent Liberty. He
Yeah.
was phenomenal. Now, obviously, Sam Witwer played Davis Bloom in Smallville. Great actor. But I really felt he went the next step with Agent Liberty in season 4. He was just fantastic. He
Once again, the black book that they must have built in the 2000s of random, or between the black book that they built between 1981 and 2010, before they set this Arrowverse up of actors and actresses. It's like they must have been like, oh, we could ask someone, and then eventually they got to say, like, look, every single person that we've ever had that's been half a decent actor, can we just contact them now, please?
Yeah.
Because it seems like they clearly went down a road of, we can only trust certain people to play certain characters. We need to bring back different people, because they did. They started to just bring in random people who'd been in, like you say, in Smallville, or even people who'd been in Arrow ended up in further down the line
Yeah,
in
some of them
different
did.
series.
Yeah, some of them did. He was really, really good. Sam Witwer as Agent Liberty. He was really good. To me, he kind of like he was a villain, but he also had like anti-hero tendencies. Like he was fighting for his cause.
Vigilante. He was the vigilante of this.
Yes,
He had his own purposes, and in fact they did it in all 3 of the series, didn't they? Or the main series. They always had one of these villains that wasn't a villain. He wasn't doing evil mad stuff. He was just doing bad stuff for his own version of good. But as the
yes.
audience, you're supposed to, once again, like wrestling, you're supposed to choose
Who to cheer
which
and
side you're on. The
yes.
problem with these series is because they've only based on one character or one team of characters, it always leads back to square one, which is, imagine in the 2017 and 18, before Roman Reigns turned heel, it just kept leading back to the same thing. Roman Reigns as a face winning the championship, and the crowd obviously figured that out. It was the John Cena thing, and that's exactly what we were getting here. We were always getting the Team Flash wins against the big bad. But if you're building up a situation after Team Flash winning and scraping through loads of situations, and maybe there's a bit of subjectiveness, eventually you give us a character that might be a heel and we might like. It's like, right, well, I'm going with the heel. You know what I mean? I know
Yeah.
he's gonna lose. I know he's gonna lose, but I'm going with the heel because I'm just sick of seeing this. And it does. It made. And I know I keep referencing Flash and Arrow, but you can't talk about Supergirl without talking about Flash and Arrow. They are almost balanced. Around season 4, season 5 of Supergirl, everything was just entwined by the tightest piece of string, don't you think?
Oh, totally, definitely. Now, another villain in the show, played by the same actress, was the Red Daughter, who's played also by Melissa Benoist. Now, for me, I think this is where she earned my respect as an actress because she showed that she could be versatile when she needed to be, and she played like the confused yet sometimes evil clone of Supergirl. And the clone was first hinted at the end of season 3 and was created by Lex Luthor. And I thought she'd done a phenomenal job because it was very rare that we ever got to see Melissa Benoist play bad. When she played bad, she was really good to watch. What
They
was
did
your
it in
thoughts?
once again. They did it in all of them, didn't they? They did Oliver as a good guy and a bad guy. They did Flash as a good guy and a bad guy. But what's interesting here is because she's obviously Supergirl or Superman, she's a Kryptonian.
Mm,
Is there is no real equivalent unless they bring in a Kryptonian to her. So what's interesting is rather than just giving you an outright like with Flash, they gave us another speedster. With Arrow, they
yes.
gave us another Archer. Not exactly the same carbon copy of the character, but it was slightly tweaked. With these, it's almost like they just give you the Bizarro world. Like they did it with Superman in the Superman and Lois. They gave us Bizarro, the Bizarro version of Superman. Is it Bizarro? Is it Bizarro?
Yeah, 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 it was Bizarro.
Yeah, Bizarro. Yeah. You know, like when you look at the Superman film that had Bizarro in it, like they do the Nuclear Man. One of them's clearly Bizarro, but they just don't name him. You know what I mean, as Bizarro or anything like that. But yeah, I'm looking back and I'm thinking they've never really been able to fully portray that. But I like this dynamic of not just having her be a dressed exactly the same sort of clone made out of whatever that Lex Luthor made them out of. They made her a not just a heel as in different version. It was a Russian version, so it also had the patriotic version of it. I like the idea of that, and because it was played by the same female, it was nice to see. Right, we're not just going down the carbon copies, bad Supergirl versus good Supergirl. We're going down the there's more to this. This is also like a real. A lot of Americans and whatever are going to watch this and feel more. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. But she
It'd
done
been
a
it'd
really
be
good job.
it'd have been like having a British superhero and then having them fight against themselves as a German superhero. You know what I mean? You know how that would make us feel. You would feel a type of way towards that.
Yeah, no, yeah, totally. What was your thoughts on the Elite, which was a team of villains led by Manchester Black? What do you remember about them from
Well,
season 4?
looking back now, because I actually seen a bit of them earlier on, the dynamic looked really good. But
Mm,
it was like it turned into, and this is the whole, once again, I can't speak about this, but I speak about the whole Arrowverse. It was like it was faction wars everywhere.
yeah, it
Every
was kind
every
of like gang
program had
warfare.
built this team up and they had to be fighting against because you can't build the big bad who everyone needs to take down because that means it would make him or her or them too powerful for the actual main name because the program's called Flash, Arrow, Supergirl. It's technically still based centrally around that character. That character, with the help of their friends, has to overcome all.
Yeah,
So with that thing, it's like if you build a character that's way too strong for Supergirl, that requires Martian Man, even though they did, that requires Martian Manhunter and or the other characters that are in the program, it
yeah,
almost makes it so it's like, right, that person's way too strong. So you've always got the, yeah, but it's kind of like you're not winning this on your own, you're winning this with all your friends. Right, so let's give them a team to fight against. And every program had this team thing, and then you had Legends of Tomorrow on going on at the same time. There was so much teams, and then obviously Black Lightning, all that. They all came tailor made with teams almost off the bat, didn't they? It's like, oh,
yeah.
why do we have to constantly have? Why can't it just be Bruce and Alfred, and then after season 3 we start to get Robin, and then season 5, 6 we might start to get fucking Batgirl, or what's her name? Yeah, Batgirl.
Yeah. No, it's true. No, you're absolutely
We don't
right. Yeah.
necessarily need a 5-man team for every single character. We need dad, uncle, mentor, whoever in the office giving advice on the comms to the hero, who can then save the day multiple times. And then maybe after 4 seasons, you've got a team of 3. And then the final season, but it could have just been circumstances that led, because they all do get team ups eventually. It led to season 2 of Supergirl, 3, 4 of Supergirl, season 5 of Flash, season 6, 7 of Arrow. They were all entwined with this team thing, and it just became eye rolling. So by the time that Supergirl got to season 4 and 5, and they then brought in teams full of villains, and I feel like the last series of Flash suffered from this, because you keep
Yeah.
interchanging the other superheroes that are helping out the main superhero. You've never got this solid foundation of, it's not Batman and Robin, is it? We don't
No.
know who's coming. We don't know which one of these is going to need to use their superpower this week.
Yeah, I know.
It was structured very well to team up
Was.
against Team Supergirl, but it was very, very unnecessary.
Yeah, it did get a bit overcrowded. I mean, they balanced it out well in season 4, but it did get very overcrowded at times.
These other characters don't always get their own standalone episodes, which kind of does my head in.
Yeah, some did, which is going to bring me to a character who I'd be remiss not to not mention this character, because I feel we have to, because this kind of changed the tone of the show. Now, obviously, we'll get into this. This is an area that needs to be touched upon. We had a new character debut in season 4 called Dreamer. Now, for those of you who may not know that character, Dreamer was the first ever transsexual DC character. So we got the debut of Dreamer. So, what was your thoughts on Dreamer?
I'm not going to go into anything about sexuality or gender, because I've got no issue with that.
No, of
I
course.
understand the diversity of them building characters that can fit to every single person and every single human. We as a person of color myself, I can't really speak about anything else like that. I thought it was a good idea. I feel like it was in the wrong series. This probably should have taken place in a completely different series, because if you're going to do this, it would have been potential. It's what we spoke about in the past. It's like they went half in rather than going full in. If you're going to do this, you should have just gave Dreamer her own series, or their own series. You know what I mean? Whatever they identify as, you should just give them their own series. But they added them into a series that already had massive, massive, massive feminist look to it, a massive feminist look to it, and a massive sort of anti-male environment look to it. I'm not going to be here. I'm not, and this is me talking real time. I'm not going to be able to do this for much longer because I've got things to do. But I have to add in there, Supergirl in season 3, 4, and 5 massively suffered because there was this, felt like, behind the scenes agenda. And I'm not trying to offend anyone by saying this. I'm just saying it had this massive feminist agenda behind the scenes, that it was like empowering females, but at the same time, it's not just empowering females, it's dragging males down and making males look weak and making males look inferior to women. That's not how this is supposed to be. If you want equality, then you want equality, and I'm all for equality, but do not masquerade equality with you using, like, almost like with great power comes great responsibility. So you're showing us on TV that you give certain types of females power and they will abuse men with that power. That's not right.
No.
If you think that that's right, then you're not right. And that goes to men and women and any non-binary person. Destroying another gender or thingy because of what we've done in the past. It's that I'm a person of color. I can't destroy all white people because of what white people have done to black people, nor should white people want to destroy all black people because of what black people. It's ridiculous. That even those thoughts are ridiculous.
No, totally. No, I think with a character like Dreamer, as you say, it's about the diversity side of things. And I thought Dreamer was a good character. Some of those
It wasn't a
episodes were
bad character. Certainly wasn't a bad character. I don't think
no,
they could have
no, no.
portrayed it as a bad character.
I,
Or I
I
say it,
quite
and I mean no thing by saying it, because that's actually not by portraying them as the character. It had to be portrayed well, because if they would have screwed this up, it would have been like they were
it,
using it to get views and stuff like that.
well, it could have been disastrous, but I thought they did a good job writing Dreamer the way they did. You know, and good actress. I thought they did a really good job with Dreamer, and I would say overall, for me, before we move on to the last two seasons, for me overall, season four was the last good season of the show, and we're gonna jump straight into season five. What
Yeah,
did you think?
this is where I'm gonna just say
Yeah.
no comment. Honestly, I can tell you, season 5 and season 6 could have been the greatest thing in the history of television, but I had become so annoyed with what they did with Arrow and what they was doing with the Flash and what everything else had become just a watered down pile of garbage at this point. I actually can tell you that I still struggle mentally to tune into the early part of season 5 and any of season 6 of Supergirl, because it really started to offend me. Not because the programming was bad. Nothing that I seen
No,
was
no, no.
over the top bad. It was more of a, do you know when the penny drops and you
Yeah.
just have that moment where you're like, everybody's voice in this room is starting to do my head in.
Yeah.
With everything that had that DC and CW logo on it around this time, it started to become. And when I said no comment, I meant no comment about the actual series itself, because I actually couldn't tell you a single thing about the series. And I'll let Warhawk talk, for a few minutes without interrupting him. And I promise you that about season 5 and season 6, because they actually weren't bad series. But as an actual series, I have no idea. I've probably seen maybe 2.5 episodes of season 5 and maybe the first episode of season 6. I couldn't do it. Honestly, I could not do it, because it gave me psychological issues to even attempt to watch these series, because I felt like I'd been ripped off and I'd been let down by something that I had followed along with for 6 or 7 years at that point there. And I know some people might say, yeah, I'm overreacting, but I felt like Supergirl really was that pinnacle of, this is what we could have been and this is what we are.
Well, season five was half and half for me. There was some decent episodes, but a lot of it for me was kind of hit and miss really, because we went from potentially the greatest season they ever did, which was season four. Although I'm still kind of like tying in with season three because I really enjoyed season three as well, thanks to Rain. But with season five, it was the costume changed, which I was not a fan of. I still think we should have kept to the iconic red skirt and red boots, because that's the iconic look of Supergirl. Didn't like the costume, didn't like the hairstyle, and I'm not, I'm not trying to hate on anyone's looks, but I felt that when they started doing these changes, the show changed with it and not for the better. And it went from being Supergirl show to being, they even said it themselves, Super Friends, and the whole thing with Lena Luthor potentially becoming, the main villain. I thought, okay,
And
this
and not the good friends either.
no, and I thought, okay, Lena Luthor is going to be the main villain for season five. She's finally learned the truth about Kara. She started drinking. She started getting evil and vindictive. I thought, all right, this might actually save season five. We might actually be onto something here, and we was heading that way. We was really heading in a good place. I thought, okay, this is where we're going to go. This is where we're going to end up at. Yeah, they didn't go that way as I hoped it would, because you had the whole Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover, and you essentially had the whole multiverse being restarted and all of the Earths fused together.
Yeah, I was gonna say, let's not forget, in the movie universe they failed with the Justice League. It had all gone wrong, so they pulled the plug basically on everything, and then started to
Yeah,
slowly reconnect what they thought they had to reconnect. Like they had
yeah,
series of the Flash and series of Supergirl that was still in the can, and they didn't want to just throw everything away. So what they did was they sort of just replugged in certain things. Now, you know, honestly, season 5. One thing I'll say this, and I'll say this now, a positive that I will say, and I've never spoke about this in any of the series, the acting. By the time that most of the series got to season 4, 5, and 6, I will give credit to the actual characters that started off in season 1 and 2, because you can see how robotic they are
Yeah,
compared to the way that they became later down the line. They were almost being given just bullet points, I feel like, especially some of the better, more known characters like Stephen Amell and Grant Gustin. They were almost just being given bullet points, and they played certain things well. You know, the likes of Harrison Wells, whatever character he was playing, they were played very, very well. Like,
definitely.
there were times when they're acting. They almost, some of these youngsters learnt on the job. You can clearly see that they learnt what they were doing on the job,
Oh yeah,
and
definitely.
it's a credit. It's a credit to them, because I will say, from what I seen in season 5 of Supergirl, which is the whole Goldberg thing I was on about earlier on. I forget what the character's name was, but it was something called Khan, I think. I've seen a
Oh,
few
that was
episodes, and
he was the
he
head
was
of
a
the
very,
Leviathan.
very powerful character. But of course, once again, like I said earlier on, I was heavily rooting for this guy, because I couldn't stand the Supergirl character at this point. I didn't like the look of her. I didn't like the way that she was being portrayed. Once again, the shift in what we were supposed to be into, as in what our beliefs were supposed to be, was quite strong in this program. You know what I mean? If, as like I say, as a minority, I have to look at it and say this would have been like watching a program that was heavily had influences of the Ku Klux Klan. I would have turned off. I'm not saying it was that extreme, but it was very much like, this is too. It's not subtle. It's very strong. This is a
Yeah,
very strong whiff of, they're trying to tell me that I'm a bad person because I don't have the same thoughts as other people.
yeah, no, totally. Yeah, the acting definitely got better as compared to the first couple of seasons to the later ones. Yeah, the acting definitely improved a lot. As you say, a lot of them had to learn on the job. That's the real truth.
They've done. I feel like a lot of them have started to. You started to clock them, haven't you, in other things, and they've started to get roles and bookings and things. Then none of these people are starting to disappear. Like, to be honest, I think Stephen Amell may have been affected more because he came out of being Arrow first, because he went into like wrestling and stuff. And I feel like he maybe could have made a bit of a career out of that, yeah, but he didn't go full bore. I don't know what's next for him as an actor, but I know some of the other people that have been in these programs that literally were no one when they first started being in the DC universe, have become characters on other TV programs, and they've been in films and stuff like that. So there's obviously other people that are paying attention to the level of acting that has taken place in these series.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, yeah, season 5 was, as I said, 50-50. There was some good episodes, and you had the crisis stuff, which there was some pros and cons to that. But yeah, for me to go from season 4, which was potentially the best season of the show, to season 5, yeah, it was not great, to be honest.
We spoke about that though, didn't we? They all did that. They all had that incredible series, and then some of them even went on to have a second incredible series like later down the line. Like some of the, we spoke about this with Arrow and Flash. They had series that came after bad series that were really good, but then they followed them with even worse series.
Well, I said in an old video a number of years ago, Supergirl season 4 broke the Arrowverse season 4 curse, because with other Arrowverse shows, you have like 2 seasons that were excellent. Then you have a third season. It was good, but not excellent, but it was still watchable. But when they get to 4, it just kind of goes off the cliff. But Supergirl didn't happen. She had a good fourth season. No
Late
other
season 3, early season 4, they all, apart from As You Are Right, Supergirl started to fall off a cliff. I feel like Supergirl suffered in its late second season, early third season, because of what was going on with the seasons of Arrow and the Flash. They had to focus way more on them,
Yeah, because they were the
because they were
flagship shows.
they were further down the line, and Arrow had seriously started to suffer in when Supergirl was 1 season old, and I think Flash was even in its second or third. Arrow was in like its fifth or sixth season, and it started to really suffer around that time, where you weren't excited about Arrow. You just wanted Oliver to come in and help Supergirl and help the Flash. But
Yeah.
then what happened was they built Arrow. I think it was either season 6 or season 7, and it was like, right, Arrow's back, but it was like a false dawn. I feel like they threw so much into I think it was either the last or the second to last season of the Arrow. They threw so much into that it's like all the other series started to suffer.
Yeah, I think that was the trouble, really. But yeah, definitely 5 was a huge jump off the cliff from 4. So this is going to bring us now to the final season of Supergirl, and that's season 6. Rex, what did you think of season 6?
Well, I'm not going to go into the big rant that I did before, but pretty much the same as season 5. I seen some things from season 6, and you could tell that something had happened in the middle of the production, that they had been hit with some kind of bombshell. And obviously we now know that that was where the female who played Supergirl had obviously things had changed in her life. I think the pandemic had come around the time, hadn't it? Or was it just before?
I think around the time season 6 was going on, I think when it was getting ready to end it, yeah, it was already an ongoing thing.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So yeah, there was something outside of just the pandemic had hit them, but I know that they'd already announced, hadn't they, that they're not
Yeah, they'd
coming
already
back after
announced
this.
that season 6 was going to be it. Yeah, I mean, with season 6, apart from I think was it the 100th episode or the 200th episode special, which I thought was the best one. Yeah, season 6 didn't have a lot going for it. I mean, you had the stuff where Kara was trapped in the Phantom Zone, which I thought was very good. I thought maybe we could have had a bit more of that. You know, Kara learning to deal with no powers, trapped full in a place full of evil phantoms. That would have been a really good final season to go out on.
Mm.
But it didn't last long enough. And then you had Mixius Pitlick's sister coming out, and
I
I think
also feel like they just needed to feel commitments here.
yes. And by the time we get to the final episode, it just felt really rushed. It was just like, oh, we're going to bring him back. Oh, we're going to bring her back. Oh, well, let's bring him back. Oh, let's just put everything in there. No, hang on a
Yeah.
minute here.
As much as I also complained about those filler episodes earlier on, I also feel that those filler episodes made the programs what they were. And once you started to get to the later series of some of these programs, they took out a lot of the filler villain of the week episodes. And I mean, you can't have your cake and eat it, can you? And I'd moan
No,
about it either way, and I would moan about it either way. But I feel like the long 8, 9, 10, 12 episode storyline arcs, the program just wasn't good enough to keep you coming back watching.
no, and I felt the ending itself, the last episode in particular. I mean, it was okay, but it was just rushed. I just felt it was rushed. You know, it just felt like, as you say, it just felt like they were just fulfilling a contract. Because okay, well, this is the final episode, so yeah, let's do
And
what
if
we
I'm
got.
not wrong, they had in season 5 and season 6, I feel like they had quite a few special guest appearances as well. And it was almost like they just signed a load of people to just certain things, and then they just realized, right, we're gonna have to end up paying all these people all this money
Yeah,
if we don't, or vice versa of that. They had a load of people in production and in, background acting and all that, like people who would be in the background of the programs who were signed to like year contracts, and it was like, look, we need to get these people into the studio as quick as possible due to the fact of the pandemic or whatever, and just get them filmed and get everything done. That's why everything just feels, let's be fair, it's not the only program
no,
that,
there's a few others.
like once again, going back to the wrestling thing, I started what I was doing in January 2020. It very quickly turned into what the world turned into after that. I built my channel during that time, which obviously there was a lot more views available because a lot more people was at home at that time there. But at the same time, like the programming that you were being given, a lot of people would not sit and watch Monday Night Raw and that live. because you'd have to take out the bits that you could stomach to watch and then
Yeah.
watch it. It was not must-see TV. A lot of this stuff that came out during that time, and I even feel like any program that was coasting in 2019, wow, you massively suffered in 2020. If your program's even a thing now, I'd be surprised. Any programming that was coasting in 2018 and 19 and early 2020, by the time that 2021 and 2022 came along, I don't know how much of those programs survived. Because once you started to see it outright for what it was with programs like this, the acting looks stiff, robotic. They bring in characters that are nowhere near the level of the actors that they've trained for the last 7 years. Do you see where I'm coming from? They
Yeah,
go and get
totally.
students and untrained people to fill roles in. But what you've got with Arrow and Flash when they're season 5 and season 6 is you've got actors that are able to work around the accentuate the positives and hide the negatives, so to speak. But then you've also got kids and unknown novices with them, so their level of acting shows up against the people who can't really act. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, definitely. So the ending of this season 6 was Kara publicly revealed her identity to the entire world on Cat Grant's
Stupid.
chat show. Stupid. I mean, it was fine for an ending of an
Iron
episode,
Man. You know what I mean? Why are we stealing from Iron Man?
but it shouldn't have been the final episode. I think maybe you could have done that at the beginning of the season. That would have been fine, and you could have dealt with all that. But to have that be the final episode, yeah, I wasn't a
Not to
fan.
mention, though, of course, and I'm so glad that you just mentioned that because I didn't even know that that's the way that the program ended. But I never got to mention the absolute absurdity that no one didn't notice that she was Supergirl.
No, Cat Grant always knew Kara was Supergirl.
Yeah, I mean that's what I mean. Like nobody, like when it doesn't matter, people don't know that she's Supergirl. The likes of the people that are around her that don't know that she's Supergirl don't know when it's convenient. It always that has annoyed me about Superman. The Flash, it explains that he can just do that shaky thing and mask himself. But the
Yeah, yeah.
glasses thing always did my head in.
I think in the old comic books they explained how they get past that. I think the glasses create like a form of hypnotism, so no one can look past them. Not hypnotism to the point where his brain.
Yeah. I remember loosely figuring out down the line that there was something to do with the glasses with Superman. Like they basically give somebody else the vision that they're looking at somebody else.
Completely different.
But then it doesn't explain when he takes off the glasses as Clark. Because it honestly, I will pick holes in that. Me and my friend have sat for hours saying, yeah, but why can people not see that Superman is Superman? It's
Because
because he
what he
takes off his
does
glasses.
is, and this is kind of what they did with Kara was, it's like with Clark when he's Superman. When he's Superman, he stands up straight. He's a lot taller, very confident, very sure of himself and focused. But with Clark, he slouches,
Yeah,
he's
yeah. But
fumbling.
not once in the 5, 6 years of this series taking place did anyone say, you know what? It's weird because Supergirl just looks like a taller, more together, more perfectly designed and stronger version of
Well, the thing
Kara.
with Supergirl, the funny thing is with Supergirl, in the first couple of seasons, I think up to season maybe 3 or something or 4, Kara was like the nerdy girl. Was like, oh yeah, yeah, yes, Miss Grant, I'll get you the coffee that you asked for. Okay, don't fire me. But then by about season 5 to 6, Kara was just behaving like how she was a Supergirl. It's like you couldn't really tell much difference.
Yeah,
It's just like
yeah. There was
Kara's
no
just.
difference.
It's like you're
Like
not even trying to hide your identity anymore. It's just like I'm Kara Danvers. Whereas
once
earlier, it's
again,
like
what made me fall like have the comic crush on her
mm,
was the Clark Kent
dynamic.
Dixie. How do they not know that you disappear for half the day? And then Carrie keeps saying something like that's how she figured it out, didn't she? Because like, come on, I'm not stupid. You
Yeah,
keep
she did actually
disappearing
say
for
that.
fucking 2.5 hours. 1 minute when you're there, it was the whole simple. Whenever Supergirl's in the room,
You're
you're
not.
not in the room,
Yes.
and I'm getting fed up of saying, "Where was you?" Did you see? You just missed Supergirl. Like, whereas I'm not Lois Lane. You know what I mean? That's what basically Carrie's character
Yeah,
was
that's
saying.
what
I'm
Cat
not
Clark
Lois.
did say that.
I'm not
So
stupid. I don't have feelings for you. I'm not in love with you. Like
yeah,
Lois always deep down kind of knew that Clark was Superman, and then when he reveals it to her, it's more of like a, so you was the whole time. She knew he was Superman though, didn't she? She tries to shoot him and everything. Yeah,
yeah,
she
yeah, yeah.
knows that he's Superman. Yeah, it's little things that he does that tricks her to think. So I get it with Superman. They do kind of cover it subtly, but in the Lois Lane, so you're not really seeing it. Yeah, but when it comes to the surplus of mankind, it's never been explained to me how no one can't just look this girl in the eye and think. I, I get it to have her come out at the end, but then she probably should have just come out at the start.
Yeah, that shouldn't have been. I mean, it was a fine. It was the ending was not the problem, but it should not have been the ending for the, for the end of the show. Really, it
At
should
least
have
they
been like,
had. Am I right to say that they had? Was it her or was it Wonder Woman that they had? Where when she's at home, she's got dark hair, and then when she's out, when she's Supergirl, she's got the blonde hair.
right
Which
in the
one was that?
right in the comics, with Supergirl, her secret identity was Linda Lee. She used to wear like dark glasses and a brown wig.
Yes.
So
Why have we not got to see that?
they did that in Smallville. They did that in Smallville a bit when Clark met Kara. She said, "You don't call me Kara in public, Clark. My name's Miss Lee. My name's
Yeah,
Miss Lee."
I remember that from the old Superman and Friends and other stuff. They get me comic books and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Her identity was Linda Lee. She actually became a reporter for not for the Daily Planet, for another newspaper company. I think it was one of the rival companies of the Daily Planet.
What is Kara's company called?
In Supergirl show, it's called Catco.
Oh, okay.
I forget what it was called in the comics, but that was her secret identity, was Linda Lee. She just basically was like,
It was in the comics. I think it was just the same thing as the Daily Planet, but just in a different city. You know what I mean?
yeah, 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 yeah. That's right. Yeah, I think it was in like a sister city to Metropolis, so it's like a
They
neighbor
did well
city.
though because they set this in the sort of mid 2000s talk show era, didn't they? Chat show
Yeah,
era
that
sort
worked
of.
fine.
They
That
didn't
that
quite go full bore social media into our generation now, but they
no,
went into the. This was from 2015, 16, so they went into the 2000 and sort of 7, 8, 9, 10
like chat
generation
shows.
of, chat shows and talk shows, but more controlled, not your trash TV sort of Jerry
Yeah,
Springer or that sort of stuff. This was more the reality TV based chat shows. You know what I mean? Like I have had, you know, I've got something to say basically.
yeah. So before we wrap this up, we're going to do our rankings of all 6 seasons. So Rex, you will go first. What your rankings of the Supergirl seasons?
What as a collective,
Each one,
one by one.
yeah, one by one. So
Well,
from
one and two were mid, so I'm talking maybe sixes and sevens. I'd say
worst to best.
three, roughly probably a six, 4, 5, and 6 low, like 3,
Yeah.
2, and 1. And I mean, like, in fact, no, because 1 would be like unwatchable. Let's say that the 4, 5, and 6 are 4, 3, and 2.
Season 3, I will put it at 8 out of 10 because I thought it was really good. Season 4, I would give it 9 out of 10. Season 1, I would give it an honest 6. I thought seasons 1 was not terrible, but not great. I'll give it 6 out of 10.
See, that already goes to show the opposite between somebody who stuck with the program and somebody who gave up. Because I would have gave season 1 like a 7 out of 10, a season 2 roughly the same,
Yeah, I
and then
would rank.
everything else after that went downhill. Whereas, like you're saying, season 3 and 4 actually weren't that bad. But honestly, like I said, you've heard it previously. At this
Yeah.
point, if you're still listening, I had walked off the cliff by this stage.
Um, I would rank season. I would put seasons 1 and 3 and 4 quite high, but then with seasons 5 and 6, yeah, they're quite low. I would probably say the worst season of the 6 was probably season 6 was probably the worst. and then 5 as well. So my number 1 season is season 4. Number 2, season 3. Number 3, season 1, and number 4, I would say was
Season 2.
season
Four.
2.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And then number 5, season 5, and then number 6, season 6. So yeah, but that's my pretty much my
I mean, if
ranking.
I was to give the whole series an overall rating from start to finish, I'd say I'd give it an average rating of about a 4.
Oh wow.
Because from my perspective, bearing in mind that I technically only watched 3.5 out of the 6 series, if I ranked it on what I seen from those 3.5 on what I seen, it would be like an 8. The way that it made me feel and what it was doing to me at the time. And you have to feel a type of way about these type of things.
No,
If
of course.
wrestling made me feel the way that Supergirl and the Arrowverse had started to make me feel at this point of season 4 and 5 and 6, I would have never watched wrestling again,
No, of course.
because it sometimes was really wrestling can be insulting of the intelligence, but there was times when this was really, really insulting my intelligence. As, do we really need to pretend 26 hours of TV? It would be too much. 24 hours of TV. You got to remember that it was like watching to watch the whole series of Supergirl. You'd need a full day.
Yeah, you probably would.
And I'll say that I haven't said that at all. But these series were unbingeable. They were completely unbingeable. You couldn't binge these series at all. Like, you could watch them in small little dribs and drabs, but you could not binge watch these series 12 episodes at a time. Not after the second series of Arrow, I don't think.
No, I don't think you could really. I think I'm going to give for someone who's actually watched all 6 seasons from start to finish. I'm going to probably I'm not going to give it a low rating, but I'm not going to give it a high rating. So I'm going to give it somewhere around the middle. I'm going to probably give it maybe like a 6 out of 10. If I'm honest, it
Yeah,
was
that makes sense. Like I said, I cannot rate it more than a 4
no,
due
that's
to the fact that
fine.
I don't have the information installed from season 5 and 6, and I don't have a lot of season 4. However, I can't just rank it on the quality parts of season 1, 2, 3, and 4. I can't do that. I have to rank it on
What you saw.
feelings, experience, want, requirement. How much did I actually want to watch that? You know what I mean? That type of stuff.
So before we wrap this up, so will what would you say? Supergirl, success or failure?
Absolute failure. Absolute waste of potential. Just said it was a failure. I said it was an overall failure. At the end of the day, Supergirl had so much potential, more potential than any of the other series, I think, because of her being female, lead role, all that. And I feel like it was the tip of the iceberg for everything that was bad and went bad in the Arrowverse. When you could see it going wrong with Supergirl, you realize, wow, how did this go wrong? Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, they had something really, really strong. They had a really unmissable. This probably was the most watchable and the most go back to and the most unmissable out of all of them. Maybe apart from Arrow Series 1 because of how fresh it was. But yeah, this really captivated me in the first 2 or 3 series. And then it just had this stench across the whole Arrowverse. And once again, like I said, I was affected by that too much. So, but yeah, overall, I would say it's unfortunate, but yeah, I think that Supergirl was a failure.
Well, for me, for the longest time, Flash and Supergirl were tied as my favorite shows. I mean, obviously, Flash still had the edge due to having a head start, but yeah, those two were my favorite shows for the longest time. But after a while, yeah, Supergirl, just the quality started to really drop after season 4 ended and got to 5. So I'm going to say it started off very strong, but then just sort of ultimately went off the cliff. So yeah, I will say it turned out to be sadly a failure, which is a shame really because it had so much promise and had so much potential to be quite possibly maybe the best show of the Arrowverse, but unfortunately it was not meant to be. But what can you do really? So that's going to be it from us. We are going to wrap this up now. What was your thoughts on Supergirl? Do you agree with me and Rex's thoughts? Do you deem it as a success or a failure? Which of the seasons was your favorite? Season 1, season 2, season 3, season 4, or season 5, or season 6? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below. Rex, this was a pleasure as always. Going
Absolute
through,
pleasure. Thank you for letting me be here. Guys, stay tuned for more.
and the next time we will be back, we are going to talk about one that I'm very much looking forward to talking about, the success and failures of Legends of Tomorrow. So make sure you don't miss that because it's going to be no holds barred on that one, big time. So until next time, take care, everybody, and stay safe. And once again, as always, much appreciated. Thanks for listening. And Rex, pleasure as always.
Yeah, peace out, guys.
Bye for now.